What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Scythe, and here we are again, talking about Trove, talking about Game Ago. Well, I mean, to be fair, we're not really going to be talking about Game Ago today. We're just going to be talking about Trove. More importantly, talking about the recent developer live stream and what ended up happening with that absolute joke. That of a live stream. Like, seriously, I can't even believe how those guys were like so clueless, and it was so discouraging. It was actually sad to watch, and not because of it being like cringe or anything like that, but having all of the things that ended up happening with Trove, you know, all this Game Ago, and being completely unsure as a player what the future is of this game that myself, like, I've invested years of my life into this game. I've been creating content on this game for years, dude, and it's crazy to think that it could be coming to an end. Like, it really is. Now, that said, I want to, you know, kind of dismay anyone in the comments that's sitting there saying about, you know, are you going to quit and stuff like that? I'm not going to quit. You know, I've been playing this game for a long enough time. It's just kind of second nature to continue playing it. That said, yeah, I haven't really been playing it that much, but I'll save that for another video, because today I want to highlight and talk about the little bits of information that we did end up getting from the developer live stream. Now, more importantly, what they ended up talking about, pretty much the live stream was like maybe half an hour to 45 minutes long, and they talked about spaghetti the whole time and struggled with trying to join Club Worlds and even figure out how to throw pinatas, and then using dev commands and stuff like that. They were just so perplexed at the whole idea of even doing like a live stream and stuff. You'd think they would have been a little bit more prepared, or had somebody actually understand what was going on with it. Now, that said, you know, these are game developers. They're not supposed to be like, you know, live streaming and being good at creating content. That's something else, you know. Leave that to the professionals like myself and the other content creators, you know. Sure, whatever. But all things considered, with everything that was going on, we were really hoping that we would end up hearing something from these guys, you know, finally official word from the devs of what we can expect and what's actually going on with the game. And now they did talk about some stuff that is discouraging, but before we end up getting into that noise, I did want to mention the parts that did seem encouraging, where first and foremost, there are developers on this game. The game is not completely abandoned. There doesn't seem to be that many people working on the game, but at least we see that there are still developers. There are still people that worked for Tryon Worlds and worked on Trove, and these guys are still working on this game. You know, we saw lots of, like, these guys were just brand new faces. You know, they were there apparently in the past, but I don't recognize them. Honestly, it's not like I watch the dev streams that often anyways. But my point being is that all of the big faces of this game, you know, all the other big lead devs and everything like that, all the personalities, those guys and gals, they're all gone. So it's just left to these guys. And honestly, it kind of felt like to me that these guys were kind of secondary or maybe lower tier. I don't mean to sound insulting. I just don't know how else to explain it. But it seems like these guys were kind of small fish that suddenly got the opportunity to become big fish working on this game all themselves, you know? And I'm not trying to say that they took the opportunity of continuing onward with Game Ago because of, you know, the possibility of just being upped employment wise. But even if they did, I wouldn't blame them, you know, like, that's perfectly fine. But it's like the things that they did talk about, I mean, like I said, they talked about spaghetti, and then they pretty much just very briefly ended up mentioning about U10, talking about like a producer's note, and then also mentioned the new way that they're going to end up designing things in the game in the future, after they end up actually getting the U10 update out. Now, I guess we'll just rip off the band-aid and say that unfortunately it doesn't look like U10's coming out this year, guys. It really doesn't. Like, they just based on how they were talking about it, and the fact that we were supposed to have gotten the test server available to us either at the end of October or early November. It is now past that time, and even with their live stream, they said they didn't know when the test server would become available. And if the test server is not even ready to become available, then that means that the U10 update is not ready to become available, unfortunately. Despite the fact that the update seemed pretty fine to me, I'm guessing there was still like some external coding issues and stuff, and they said that the U10 update was pretty much 90% done, and there was just kind of a little bit left over. But I think the big reason why, unfortunately, we're going to be seeing a bit of a delay with the U10 update is because with all of this Game Ago nonsense that ended up happening, you know, it's a big transitional period for the people that are still involved with Trove. So maybe it's not even that the U10 update is far off from being completed. It's just that these guys probably haven't settled in yet enough to even start working on it. You know what I mean? To even start working on the last bits of the update or anything like that. You know what I mean? So anyways, with that, we really honestly, I don't know what's gonna happen with the U10 update. It's gonna end up coming out. It really is, but it doesn't look like it's coming out in this year. Probably early 2019, maybe. And because of this, because of the way that this worked out, they talked about their new kind of philosophy for designing, you know, when the updates are going to end up coming out. And they used a completely confusing and absolutely stupid analogy, talking about like a train leaving a station and like something about a truck for shipping and stuff like that. I don't know. You can see my reaction in my reaction to the dev stream video. Like, it was completely stupid. Like, I have no idea how like they thought that was like a good idea that would make sense in like English, let alone like to people that don't have English as their first language. You know what I mean? So anyways, I theorized, and then they ended up confirming that in fact the way that they have developed content for Trove in the past, this is not their words, this is mine, but the way that they've developed stuff for Trove in the past is they've made you know, they'll have like a whole bunch of little things that kind of combine into one big update. And what they used to do in the past was they would just kind of have like all of these little things. Like, we'd constantly have little updates coming out left and right for Trove. Back in the day, we used to have Trove updates every week. And then that slowed down to once, you know, every 2 weeks, and then once a month. And then when console came out, it was much less than that. Which the reason for this is because, as far as I've heard from feedback from you guys, as well as just whoopsie daisy, Trove just crashed. Okay, cool. Anyways, the reason for this not only is because the extra development time that has to be spent converting a PC update to be compatible with both consoles, but on top of it, apparently the way that it works in regards to licensing with Sony and Microsoft, more particularly Microsoft, is that if any game on console ends up updating more than once a month, it costs the company like a lot of money to end up putting out like regular patches more than once a month. You know, just I can only understand because like the way that their servers work for all of the games involved and stuff like that, right? Like, it's got to do with some type of console licensing stuff, right? So because of it, that's why we saw less and less updates, or less and less frequent updates for Trove. Then we ended up getting the new lead developer sometime around last year, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, we've kind of had less updates, but whenever they would come out, they would kind of come out in a big way. You know, last year we ended up having the big Shadow Tower overhaul, and then this year we had the Vanguard update earlier in the year, and things were looking up. Things were looking really good. They had promises of 4 updates coming out this year. You know, the second one being the Geode Cave system, which seemed like absolute trash, you know, just because it was something that nobody asked for. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the initial Geode update. I think that it was great originally, like at the beginning. But then once you get to like that 50 to 60% mark of actually being able to have that content completed, it just falls to the wayside and just becomes a completely separate portion of the game that doesn't fit with anything, right? And that was my biggest criticism towards it. Then we were supposed to see the U10 update, and finally the last update of the year was supposed to be Geode Phase 3, as they called it, where it was going to add new Titan bosses to a Geode themed kind of, let's just call it a Shadow Tower. type of thing, and then new rampage bosses and stuff like that. But unfortunately, that update got delayed into 2019, and then the U10 update was supposed to be coming out, and well, now that seems delayed and what have you, right? So my point being, though, is that this design philosophy, though cool, doesn't really work in the long run for the for the developers such as the Trove developers, and the way that they kind of develop things is very, very slow. Like I don't know, but anyways, the point being is that they mentioned that rather than having all of these little things kind of culminating into one big update, from U10 and up, maybe they're going to finish off Geode Phase 3 before they end up starting this, but eventually what their plan is to have these smaller updates coming out more regularly once again. And more importantly, they mentioned that they're going to have kind of like, when something ends up getting developed, it's going to get developed, they're going to focus all their time on it, and then as soon as they get the go ahead, they're going to put it on the servers for us to end up playing with all the new stuff right away. That's going to happen on the PC server, and then it's probably going to end up taking a couple months before it comes out on the consoles afterwards. Now, I know if you're a console player, you're sitting there getting frustrated and thinking that's not fair, when in reality, it's actually way better. Because PS4 players especially are going to know the pain of what ended up happening with the Trove Improvements update. Now, could you imagine, just think about this for a minute, okay? With the Improvements update crashing the game every 2 seconds. Wouldn't it have been so much better to have the Improvements update that we have now, where it's fixed and it doesn't crash the game anymore, to have this update come out for PS4 a couple months after PC players were the ones that suffered through all of the crashing? Personally, I think that's way better. Even back in the day when I would play console games, I always thought it was better that console players get these updates after, because it means that PC players are pretty much the beta testers. We get to bug fix all this stuff for you guys first, have the game crash a billion times, and then they end up fixing all of that, and then the update comes out for console, right? On top of it, it means that we should see a more frequent updates and more frequent new content being added to the game. And with it, Trove's relevancy hopefully should end up going up a little bit, because that's one of the biggest things about Trove, is its relevancy is just getting less and less and less. I mean, right now it's pretty hot, just because of all the stuff that's going on with Trine Worlds being completely dissolved and everything like that. But it's like, it does not spell good in the long run. Not by any means. Now that said, all things considered, Trove's never going to be the same again. We just gotta face facts. That's just it. It's never going to end up being the same. And in regards to the whole U10 being delayed and stuff like that, I could care less. I kind of understand this. We kind of all saw this coming. And I know that there's going to be some people that are just going to be outright frustrated, maybe just even uninstall the game if you haven't already. And the reason why I don't really think that this is too big a deal is because when I had my last video come out talking about all this Game Ago stuff, we ended up kind of hearing the official statement from not only Game Ago, but more importantly, Trine Worlds. And we heard that not only the developers, but even the lawyers involved at Trine Worlds, they all only heard about Trine Worlds, the entire company, being dissolved like last minute. So the Trove developers were sitting here happy as can be, working out U10, and then suddenly, within the span of like less than a week, they hear that the company's been sold, it's being dissolved, and they're fired. I mean, well, laid off. It's different than being fired. But the point is, that's crazy. And it would be insane to think that we would be able to even have the U10 update delivered on time with all of this stuff considered. So that's kind of my argument in the defense of Trove. That said, I can agree that there is nothing going on with this game right now, and we've kind of just had a lack of content with Trove for quite some time, like quite a few months now. And because of it, yeah, in all honesty, even I've been taking a bit of a break from the game and just been spending most of my time on MapleStory. I actually do still continue to recommend that you guys end up not only checking the game out for yourselves, but if it's something that you don't want to install just yet, just watch my videos. The game is completely free, and in a lot of ways it's better than Trove. More importantly, because of where that game is going, and Trove even if, or even when, I should say, even when Trove ends up having more updates and patches and stuff like that, it's going to be a long road. You know, it's gonna take a while before Trove ends up, you know, seeing its future realized. Now, that said, the developers that are still in charge of the game, it seems like they have a bit of a better understanding of how they should be developing this game. Like, that alone, having more frequent updates, I feel is a big step in the right direction that the other developers unfortunately just didn't seem to understand. And hopefully the devs that are working on the team right now are the guys that understand what we actually need for this game is not a new level of difficulty, it's not new gems, it's none of that stuff. Hopefully they understand that the success of this game relies on, I mean, yeah, the game does definitely need a new end game, don't get me wrong, but we need new classes and we need new biomes, and we need that stuff as regularly as possible. We should see a new class once a year, we should see a new biome at least once or twice a year. And honestly, I think everyone would be happy if they just kept those updates rolling out. Honestly, that's just my own personal 2 cents towards it, because having these bigger updates, like this whole U10 business, is just like so over exaggerated that even though it seems like it's going to be a really cool update when it comes out, don't get me wrong, I've talked about this before, talked about how much I like the update and think that it's a great step in the right direction. Unfortunately, it seems like the U10 update was more themed towards casual players rather than actually adding a proper end game to Trove, and that's kind of the big argument towards all of this time spent on such a big, like, fat, ugly update, you know? But anyways, I guess it's better than the geode cave system, right? And everything's better than improvements update. Anyways, I don't mean to ramble more than I need to, folks. I'm going to have another video come out later this week that's going to be talking about the Trove producer letter, which I mentioned earlier, where apparently the producer is going to end up making a letter response, kind of letting us all know what's going on with Trove and what's going to happen with the future with it and stuff like that. And this was one of the biggest reasons why the latest dev stream, they didn't really talk about anything, because these guys they're not the people in charge. You know, these guys are the developers. They're not really the people that, you know, have Trove's future as a plan, you know, so that the game ends up continuing being successful. So this is where the producer's going to come in, and hopefully the letter is going to end up being something that addresses a lot of our concerns more adequately. Anyways, thanks for watching. Very much appreciate it. If you want to support me, guys, and I really do appreciate you if you do, you can always sponsor the YouTube channel by hitting that join button down below, buying some of my real life merch. You know, we got the Oh Hi Merc shirt, or if you know, don't have any money, you can check out the link down below to Gawkbox, which is where you can donate to me for absolutely free. Pretty much you download phone games, play them for a few minutes, then you earn sponsored currency that you can send my way in the form of real money. It's absolutely beautiful, and you know, you could have done that while you were watching the video. Even if you don't, I don't mean to make you guys feel guilty about it. It's just recommended. Well, it's not even recommended. Honestly, do whatever you guys want. I just appreciate you being around and watching the videos. Thanks for watching. Sign on and stay epic.